to 4% in Singleton at term. And the term breech was probably derived from the word breeches, which means cloth covering the loins and thigh, and we also use it to conduct the breech delivery. The new gen obstetricians are losing the art of breech delivery. So we have an opening batsman who will lead into the tips and tricks of breech delivery, Professor Lily. I would request Nishi to say a few words before Professor Lily starts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Hope Society, for inviting me to chair this session. As Dr. Jyoti has said, it's a very tricky presentation, except in few situations, we are in an uncertainty regarding the attempt will be successful or not. So I think Dr. Lily can clear all these aspects of uncertainty regarding the breech delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti, for telling me, yes, I'm the open batsman and having a very important task. Greetings from my institutions. Greetings to you all, Perinthalmanna Society, POXI. I wish you all success. So I'm going directly to the topic on hand. It's all about that breech. And my topic was practical tips. So I'm not wasting time with too many talks. However, I would like to say why learn a vaginal breech delivery. The skills, the art and the craft of vaginal delivery is rapidly coming down. A small fetal heart deceleration, cesarean. So we have become masters at cesarean. Even a cephalic delivery is becoming a challenge in these days. However, why learn a breech delivery? Because we do have patients who present late in labor, out of hospital deliveries, where you have a vaginal breech delivery and the head may be found hanging. There may be a lethal fetal anomaly or fetal death. Or during an LSCS also, you need to mimic every one of these movements. And after the term breech trial of 2000 by Hannah et al., the numbers of vaginal breech delivery just crashed. I was one of those lucky people who trained before that time in a government hospital. So we had delivered quite a few of these breeches then, and we continued till now. It has become the norm to have a cesarean section. However, the RCOG and the ACOG guidelines say that with an appropriate patient who's adequately counseled and a skilled provider, you can still consider giving a vaginal delivery. I just presume that everybody in every teaching institution uses the ECV to convert a breech to a cephalic. The risks of vaginal delivery are many, and this is something that should be clearly counseled. The feto-pelvic disproportion or cephalopelvic disproportion in a leading cephalic baby is common in all pregnancies. Cord prolapses, again. However, head entrapment of the aftercoming head is a unique complication which scares both patient, the baby has everything at stake, and the doctor alike. Perinatal mortality being much higher in a breech vaginal delivery, the usual option is to go in for a planned cesarean. However, unplanned deliveries still do occur, and in the given patient, adequately counseled where contraindications are addressed, and a person who is appropriate for a vaginal breech delivery may still be given a vaginal breech delivery. When you talk about a vaginal breech delivery, we are thinking only about a frank breech or a complete breech. At the very outset, I'd like to say all kinds of incomplete breeches require an LSCS because the problems with cord prolapse and all other issues like head entrapment are way too high, the risks to have anything else. Now, the conduct of labor, this is called Lily's 6 C's. Okay, this is my own invention. And I have put the first thing is a calm, skilled doctor who's breathing deeply and thinking normally. Not somebody who's panicky, screaming, shouting, doesn't know what to do. So if you see such a patient, breathe deeply, calm down. Call for help. Get your crew together. Get your nurse, your delivery assistant, neonatologist, especially if you do not have an in-house anesthetist, make sure the person is available. Collect all your material that you require, from an ultrasound machine in your labor room to your forceps, your episiotomy set. Everything should be kept arranged on a tray and ready. Clear instructions, tasks should be assigned to each person. There should be no confusion, and this is what the lead doctor should do. And it's most important that there are controlled, deliberate movements, no panicky push and pull during a delivery. The place ideally should be in a facility which has a labor room who are complex with experienced skilled personnel. The types of vaginal breech delivery I will be speaking about now is the spontaneous breech delivery or the assisted breech delivery. I'm not talking breech extraction or a cesarean section breech extraction. In the first stage, very briefly, there's a low threshold for LSCS. Avoid iatrogenic person presence in the first stage. Avoid iatrogenic rupture of membranes because you do not want the cord to prolapse out because of an ill-fitting breech. If there is slow progress, assess the 3 Ps, the power, the passenger, and the patient who's pushing. Okay, so oxytocin augmentation is allowed according to RCOG and ACOG, basically only when the person is on an epidural, analgesia, and there are documented decreased contractions. However, if a person is properly assessed and found that everything is normal except for the contractions, we may cautiously start oxytocin. The after coming head, immediately after the breech starts delivering, it's a good idea to start your oxytocin drip or your pitocin drip. However, there may be a number of patients who come and present with an unplanned breech near or in active second stage of labor. When I say active second stage is when the person feels like pushing and the breech is occupying the sacral hollow. These patients should not be hurried to Caesar. You should take the time to organize your team and your crew. No routine LSCS if there's no other contraindication. If you have time adequately, confirm that the fetal neck is not hyperextended, as you can see in the arrow there. Do a PV and check that the cervix is fully dilated. There should be no palpable cervical rim anywhere all around because this is what causes head entrapment. Okay, so there are 2 stages in second stage, the passive second stage and the active second stage. When the person is just dilated, don't start as a team pushing down on and telling push, 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 push. No. And a passive second stage, you can allow up to 2 hours based on RCOG, 1.5 hours according to ACOG and SOGC. Active pushing, once the breech occupies the sacral hollow, will be up to 60 minutes. Remember, a panicky doctor will result in poor outcomes. Keep your hands off until the delivery of the umbilicus. 3 important fetal landmarks. I have marked it all with sellotape. You can see the popliteal fossa is marked, the angle of the scapula is marked, and the occipital protuberance is marked. I will be referring to these 3 points in series. I'm going to show certain small clips that I have taken and just going to highlight mostly by videos what we need to do. Bearing down should be encouraged only when the breech is already distending the perineum and the breech is visible. A policy of selective episiotomy should be undertaken. Not everybody needs a episiotomy, especially if the breech is relatively small and progressing without a problem. Avoid traction and umbilical cord handling. ACOG says to keep the umbilical cord aside, but if you handle the umbilical cord, they're likely to be spasms and causing a nuchal arm. Use fetopelvic grip in all circumstances. All maneuvers should be done to avoid fetal trauma, not cause fetal trauma. Back should be kept anterior. Assistance and maneuvers are only required if maternal efforts are inadequate. This is after delivery of the umbilicus, fetal tone or color is poor, and there's a delay in delivery with extended arms. Your clock starts ticking the minute the buttock starts delivering. So you have an available time of 5 minutes from delivery of the buttocks to the head and 3 minutes, not more than 3 minutes from umbilicus to the head. Somebody should mark time. Keep the back anterior, keep head flexed. By keeping the back anterior, all maneuvers should be done along the ventral surface of the baby's body. The trunk should not be lifted more than 45 degrees above the horizontal because this places undue pressure and traction on the spine and on the neck. Okay, utilize the space as shown in the arrow of the sacral curve to insert your hand and conduct maneuvers. As you see the breech climbing the pelvis, you should not start pulling at the breech, especially if the mother is pushing down and bearing down well. Extract the legs. As you can see the legs here, only once the umbilical cord is visible and the popliteal fossa is visible. Just push in the popliteal fossa and abduct, and the foot will usually slip down instantly in an uncomplicated breech. The legs take two positions, that is either an extended position or a flexed position, and the maneuvers required, as I said, are different. Groin traction is only very rarely used, usually in breech extractions. Only moderate traction should be used with one finger in each groin, which will limit the amount of force you apply. The groin traction should also be applied with both hands, not with a single hand, and the breech should be rotated, keeping the back anterior. The position of the head, as you can see here, is quite high. No crystallized maneuver, no pushing of the fundus should be done at this point. It will cause only inadvertent injury to mother and fetus. So until the umbilicus is delivered, hands off. I don't like the term breech decomposition. However, it means breaking down the steps. The word decomposition sounds horrible. That's a flexed leg. What does one do? One just puts your hand into the sacral hollow in front of the baby, grasp the ankle, and gently bring the ankle down along the ventral surface of the patient's, of the baby's body. It is held in a cigarette holding fashion. You can see here in the thing, if the legs are extended, however, we may need the Pinard's maneuver. This is me with the mannequin. So it may not be like an expert thing, but as you can see, what we do is you reach inside, you put your hand up to the popliteal fossa, abduct the thigh, giving pressure on the popliteal fossa. Usually this causes the foreleg to fall down. And when in a live baby, here you can see me doing a slight manipulation and lifting the leg out. The same procedure should be followed in the opposite leg. In always utilize, once the baby is delivered up to the umbilicus, always utilize the feto-pelvic grip, holding the baby around the pelvic girdle. The trunk should not be lifted more than 45 degrees. Do not do any further maneuvers until the angle, the second point, the angle of the scapula is visible, because as I showed you in this panel, on the other side, you can see that if the scapula is still behind the pubic symphysis, the head is still quite high. Suprapubic pressure at this point is not going to help, and any premature maneuvers will cause head entrapment and fetal distress. I put a picture of an arm which is held behind the head. As you can see, in this position, the hands, when the hands are down, you can see the inner angle or the margin of the scapula, and the angle of the scapula are parallel to the spine. However, in a baby, as the baby descends or you give gentle traction downwards, if you see the angle of the scapula is very wide from the spine and you see a lateral deflection, this is an idea to tell you that the patient may have the baby may have an extended arm or a nuchal arm. So this will require particular maneuvers. So as described, arm positions may be 3. You can have the flexed arm, which is in front of the body, which is most comfortable. The baby, you can just move the arm down in the ventral surface of the baby. The extended arm, where you may read slight rotational maneuvers, the Lausitz maneuver, and the nuchal arm, where you need an expert to be able to do a rotation, knowing exactly what they're doing in a calm, controlled manner. So for the flexed arms, there's no problem. You just lift the baby laterally, you put your hand posteriorly, utilize the sacral bay, and just sweep the baby's arm out in front of the body, depress the baby's body, and remove the anterior arm, or a slight rotation will release the anterior arm. The pictures are from Williams. Okay, here I'm showing you what is done with the nuchal arm. Look at the pointing finger of the fetus. Okay, if it is behind the head, you can see the axilla is extended. The scapula will be divided. And as you can see, I am rotating in the direction of the baby's fingers. We will be looping this. You can see here that once that is done, and you hold the baby in a feto-pelvic grip and rotate to the other side, you will see the other arm becoming instantly visible, and you can extract the arm. Now watch this, how the minute the arms are removed, look at the arms, look at the occipital protuberance, and you can see how by just sweeping, the friction of the pelvis makes the arm fall anteriorly. Okay, and then the delivery of the arm by rotation or by just depressing the baby, removing the anterior arm, or rotating the baby and removing the next arm, the posterior arm, which now becomes anterior, becomes easier. No pulling and pushing. Utilize the curve of Keres. Whether it is the cephalic presentation where the head has to enter, negotiate the mid pelvis and the brim, or it is the breech. The principle is the same. It has to engage, has to utilize the sacral bay and then climb out. The head delivers by extension, the fetal breech delivers by climbing out of the pelvis. The same principles should be used in all situations. Macrobert's position allows a rotation, a cephalad rotation of the symphysis pubis, preventing the fetal chin if it is facing anteriorly from getting hitched on the pubic symphysis, preventing the occipital protuberance from getting hitched or the shoulders from getting hitched. Okay, so the most dreaded complication is the aftercoming head of the breech and its entrapment. So this is the third important point, is the occipital protuberance and the nape of the neck, which is depicted by the arrow. Nape of the neck means the posterior surface of the neck. If the baby, before the neck is seen, the nape of the neck or the back of the neck is seen, if you start extending the baby in a Marshall Burns, as you can see, a premature maneuver can result in an extension of the head, and it can result in very poor outcomes with head entrapment. So I'm showing you the grip on the feet here. So you can see here the nape of the neck is well visible. All one needs to do is hold the leg, go along the curve of the sacrum and lift the baby over the mother's body in a controlled manner if required, using your palm like a shoehorn to push down the perineum. So you can see this, that the baby just needs to be lifted. You should not swing it. You should not push it with great force. You should always remember that the baby's cervical spine, you can have an atlantoaxial dislocation. If you use too much of force, remember that the baby is the citizen of the future. So this is the Marshall Burns technique. You use a wide arc, you use controlled movement and force. The modified Smarisios-Meliviet method, you place your fingers of the dominant hand on the malar prominences so you can flex the head. You place the other hand splinting on the shoulders and splinting the occiput, and the baby should be straddled across your arm. As you can see here, use the sacral hollow, put your hand in, keep the baby across your arm, splint the baby's neck, and do a very gentle upward rotation, again using the same principles, deliver the baby and flip it over the mother's abdomen. The Piper's forceps is what I have always used, and I'm very comfortable. It's a wonderful instrument. It's a specially prepared instrument with a long shank which is curved and the blades which are slightly depressed, which allows for application, a cephalic application along the baby's head without having to pull the baby or extend its neck too much. So the forceps are applied from below. Even if you don't have this forceps, a long forceps or a Keelan's forceps is fine. It should be locked. The baby should be placed on top, and then a gradual controlled extension should be done. You can see here, I'm sorry about the noise. You can see here that the blades are being applied, and you can see here the assistant is holding up the baby and the blades are being locked. So it's a direct cephalic application along the sides of the face, and you can see that it has been locked, and the baby should be placed on top of the forceps, holding the feet securely, holding the thing. I've not put a towel because it's allowing you to see the maneuver and how the baby is gradually delivered. This gives you a controlled delivery, which is a very good idea. Now, what do you do if the fetus, instead of the back being anterior, comes face front? Okay, this is a big problem, and this is ideally a situation which should be avoided in all counts by gently encouraging the back to remain anterior. Do not pull downwards. As you can see, if you pull downwards, the head extends and the head entrapment can occur because of chin against the pubic symphysis. Always lift the baby's body in these instances. It will encourage flexion. As you can see, lifting encourages flexion and gives suprapubic pressure. Here we are delivering the baby. You can see this is called the Prague maneuver when the face is in front, and the baby should be delivered very, very gradually. I'm sorry, the video is not rotated. That's my mistake. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Another maneuver is called the Bracht maneuver, which is rarely used. As the fetus emerges with extended legs, the buttocks are held and the thighs are held in this position, and the baby is held pressed against the pubic symphysis, and as the head descends with suprapubic pressure, the baby is gradually lifted out. You can see me doing it. You can see the suprapubic pressure. Unfortunately, the head got stuck inside and my assistant is helping me out here. But this is a very good maneuver which should be done in a calm, controlled manner. If the Bracht maneuver, if you push the baby's bottom against the pubic symphysis, the neck can get hyperextended. It should just be lifted and held out in a wide arc. The Derson's incision is very rarely used when the fetus or an incomplete breech slips out, and it should be done with great care and also check subsequently for traumatic hemorrhage. All I would like to say is I'm running out of time. I would like to say is a skills update is extremely important. Repeated hands-on training on mannequins, repeated refresher courses, put the instructions and what you require for a breech delivery on a notice board in your labor room manual. Put it on your labor room computer, videos of breech delivery so that the PGs can keep seeing, because we know the numbers now are so few. Okay, I think we are running out of time. Anyhow, I'll just put this quickly to just show you a breech delivery. This is from the Merck breech delivery manual. He has done a few wrong things like not holding the baby when as required in the fetopelvic grip. But considering this is a mannequin, I think we can forgive him. But the rest of it is pretty good. So I thought, okay, we'll just do a quick run through the breech delivery. As you can see, the legs are being delivered by the Pinard's maneuver. The back is being kept anteriorly. The baby is delivered till the umbilicus and a towel is wrapped around it. The baby is held in a fetopelvic grip. Downward traction is given in a steady manner till the anterior shoulder is seen. Then the baby is rotated so that you can just see and sweep the anterior shoulder, especially in a flexed breech in front of the baby. You can see the anterior shoulder is now rotated posteriorly, and the posterior shoulder, which is in the sacral bay, comes anteriorly. It is delivered similarly. Subsequently, a towel is placed over the baby's shoulder, and the baby, you give downward traction. At this point is when you need to give suprapubic pressure to make sure the nape of the neck is seen. Give suprapubic pressure, promotes flexion, and tada, your baby is born. Okay, so this is what we require: a happy mother and a healthy baby. We should upgrade our skills. Thank you all for your patient listening. I hope it has been clear. I will take any questions you would like to ask me subsequently. Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you, Dr.
Jyoti, Dr. Nishi, anything?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lily, for that elusive presentation. I just wanted to add that in Kerala, for the MOCAS, we give training for breech delivery, conductive breech delivery, and we advise short forceps to be used, not Piper's forceps.
Sure.
And Dr. Piley has devised short forceps, and it can be applied and baby can be delivered. Another thing I wanted to put up was empty the bladder.
Yes, of course.
That is very
That's
important.
extremely important. Otherwise, that can obstruct the baby's head from descending.
Yeah, so space is not occupied. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, one and all, for your
at
kind
the end
listening.
of the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to highlight that point. Routinely, we are delivering the aftercoming head by outlet forceps. That is when the chin should be at the level of the pochette and the hairline should be visible. At that time, we can apply our routine outlet forceps, as Dr. Jyoti has correctly said, that forceps devised by Piley sir is equally good to deliver a head in a controlled manner without undue hyperextension.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, a very nice presentation.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lily, for that wonderful speech, and thank you, moderators.